Okay, let's see, 10 minutes into it. Let's do this thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, furry paws and pals. I don't know, that's something people say. We have Chris Stec joining us with LocalAds. So Chris has been with LocalAds since the beginning, which is about 4 years, and has been working in the digital advertising space for almost 10. So super knowledgeable, and he works behind the scenes and works between the sales teams and our fulfillment teams, and primarily focusing on like the training and support side. He lives in the US, South Carolina. He married with 4 boys, 3 dogs. I really want to know your dogs' names. Fun fact, Chris has over a dozen Marvel characters tattooed on his arm. If you don't have Iron Man, then you're not allowed to present today, Chris. So.
And I know George would not have it if I didn't have Iron Man on there.
There we go. Yeah.
He was one of the first. All right, I can only show one of the arm because there's only one that's uncovered, and this one is fairly new. It's Magneto.
Wow.
I've got many more to add. And in case that introduction didn't give it away, I'm a giant child. I've got superheroes up on the wall behind me, but having 4 boys, it makes it very easy to get them on board with it, and it's something that we're able to connect on, and it keeps me young.
Have you seen the new Spider-Man?
I have. Yep. Took the boys to see it too. Yes.
Okay. Anyways.
Very, very much so.
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, thank you for the introduction. I'll jump right in because I'm very much looking forward to the opportunity to talk about LocalAds. Emily and I both kind of got put on the spot here. We're kind of behind the scenes folks. And like Colleen said, my role is really working with the product development team, in between the sales team, doing some training, some updates and things like that. And I want to introduce one more person from the team that's on. And some of you have probably spoken to him if you've had anything to do with LocalAds. And that's Nick Hulsman. He is the LocalAds sales specialist. So he is working day to day on the front lines with you guys as partners, as well as with the BDR and PDM teams. And so if you talk to anybody about LocalAds, it's probably been Nick. You will very rarely ever see or hear me, Emily, any of the other folks that are behind the scenes, but Nick is the rock star out there who is working with you guys on a daily basis, and then working tirelessly behind the scenes to help make sure campaigns are executed, work well, and continue to give you guys opportunity to grow. But now I get the opportunity to talk to you, for those of you who may not know about LocalAds, about the product. Let me go ahead and share my screen here real quick. And I'm going to put it into a presentation mode. So if we have any questions during this, please chime in, stop me, yell at me. I have 4 boys and 3 dogs. I'm used to being yelled at. It's not going to bother me.
Also throw them in the chat too, because we'll be sure to answer all of them.
Yeah. So LocalAds and Conquer Local Academy, very much looking forward to the opportunity to chat with you guys a little bit. Quick agenda and overview of just a few things we want to go through today. What is LocalAds? What will you learn? What's new? What's coming soon? And then some Q&A. So I'll jump right in. So who may be new, haven't experienced LocalAds, haven't had an opportunity to jump into the product pages or see any of that. Obviously, it's a digital advertising solution. We differentiate it a little bit from others because it is very heavily focused on 2 key components, objective and audience. So it is objective based, meaning we're looking to drive towards a tangible outcome. And it's great ways to allow you guys to have conversations with your clients about really what are they trying to achieve. Question I love to have asked is, how are you going to measure the success of this campaign? And we look at it in a few different ways. Obviously, if they're trying to create some brand awareness, name recognition, then delivery impressions, eyeballs, those things are going to be how they measure the success. But we want to dig deeper to that too, and have the ability to show driving through to an online conversion, whether that be a form fill, a sign up, a recorded phone call, and even taking attribution offline into following consumers into a brick and mortar location that we've been able to drive traffic into and show what we call visits. And that's going to be a real world, real time. I walked into a physical location after seeing an ad, be able to drive traffic through there. The second component of it, and I'll get into it a little bit more, is the audience. And we've got a very unique way that we aggregate, build, and understand our audience. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. But it's taking all of those things, putting them into a campaign, learning, optimizing, adjusting, continuing to grow, and really driving home the point. I know I probably say it ad nauseum when I train, and it's really focusing on how do we attain that key objective, that KPI, that number one way that your clients at the end of the day are going to judge whether or not a campaign has been successful. Nick, anything you want to chime in and add to that? Take that as a no.
Sorry about that. I was on mute there for a second, guys. No, I don't think so, Chris. I think that covers it. I mean, I know you'll talk a little bit more in terms of like the custom audience and just kind of the advantage of that and how that's different from the traditional advertising. But yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing that we always talk about is just, you know, objective is so important in terms of how we're optimizing, and then obviously allows you to set proper expectations with your clients, and then you know, really hones in on that number one KPI and objective. So that's kind of where it all starts.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about the methodology behind how we do what we do and why we do it the way that we do. So we follow an acronym that we came up with a few years ago that we, you know, and anybody who's talked to Nick has probably heard him say ICIC. And it just stands for Identify, Connect, Influence, and Convert. And really, as you look at it and you think about it, that's how you push consumers through the funnel. There is number one, it's identify first and foremost, what's your key objective? And then secondly, who do you need to speak to? So it's identifying that ideal audience for you. And we'll talk about how we do that in just a minute. Then we connect with them. A buzzword that was on the last slide that I didn't use, but we'll explain how it fits into this is omni-channel. And really, when we say that, what we mean is access to that audience wherever they may be. It doesn't necessarily mean a local ads campaign is going to run across multiple different platforms if it doesn't need to, if it doesn't fit the objective. But we have the ability and the access to do that. But what we're going to do after we understand what our objective and who our audience is then connect with that audience across whatever way they're engaging in media and taking that in. As we do that through ad creatives, incentives, offers, all of the things that your clients will be promoting to that audience, we're going to influence them, driving them towards a conversion, whatever conversion that objective would be. And then lastly, we want to drive them into that conversion. So whether it's an in-store visit, whether it's a phone call, some type of online conversion, whether it's just creating awareness about a business or an event that may be going on, we want to move them ideally through that funnel. So I mentioned this earlier, kind of the way that we do that is through an omni-channel approach. I love this graphic, and we're actually working to redo this a little bit to create a little bit more, tell a little bit more of the story. But as consumers, and I think this is extremely important, everybody takes information in different. You can't, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, can't fit a square peg through a round hole, and the hundreds of other cliches. If you look at a siloed approach, often you are missing out on potential audience because that may not be how your ideal customer engages. And so I love this graphic here because it talks about the average user and the way that we throughout the day, throughout our lives, engage across multiple devices. All of those devices have information in there that ties back to us as that user, as who we are. But what we're doing is not trying to fit that square peg into that round hole, but instead opening up the opportunity to speak to that ideal audience and that user wherever they may be engaging. So Nick, I know this is one you talk about a lot with partners and when you're on calls. Anything you want to add to this?
I think just in general, from what we see out there is there's always a little bit of that guesswork in terms of finding where your target audience is, you know, and we have that conversation a lot. Is it better for social? Is it better for display? Is it Google ads? And by nature of some of that guesswork, there's some turnover there and just not always 100% knowing the best strategy. So what this is really, you know, back to what Chris was saying there, let's figure out our ideal perfect audience first and foremost, start there, know, you know, before we even serve an ad to anybody, right? And then let all those channels kind of drive wherever they're frequenting there to kind of take that guesswork out of it there. So I think that's just kind of what we see across the board. This tends to allow for that full multi-channel approach there and focusing on the audience.
Yeah, and I'm a huge believer that who we are trying to speak to is far more important than where we speak to them. And that just gets away from some of the platform focus, the site placement focus. It's less important of where our message is being delivered, and it's more important who our message is being delivered to and how we're getting in front of them. So that this obviously reflects our belief in that. So we've talked a little bit about this, and this is kind of the overview of the local ads tactic. It's identifying our audience, and we'll break these things down here in just a second. It is, once we know who we're going to speak to, then it becomes very important what we want to say to them and how we move them through that funnel, how we influence their behaviors and their actions with ad creatives, offers, incentives, all of those things that I know Nick works with you guys on when he's on calls. And then ultimately driving towards attribution, because I, without a doubt, know that your customers and your clients ask you consistently, what is this doing for me? What's the ROI? How do I know this is working? And so we want to provide tools that allow you to have conversations with lots of ammunition, lots of data, lots of things that are very rich and robust to be able to show if a client's going to spend money, what's their return on it. So we think that's very, very important. And not just the attribution piece of it, of what business did I gain from it, but what did I learn about my audience? What did I learn about my consumer? What can I take with me in my next campaign, even outside of this? Hey, in an ideal world, everybody would spend all of their advertising budget on local ads and nothing else. But realistically, there are many different ways that clients are advertising and businesses are advertising. So learning about your audience and being able to take that information into other forms of advertising, traditional media, out-of-home media, things like that, it's extremely important because it again allows you to be efficient and effective in what you do. So when we talk about audience, we're talking about a very unique, a very specific targeted audience that we're able to reach whenever and wherever. And this slide is less important than this one. The way that we do that is through a unique combination of online and offline data. And the LocalAds product has built technology partnerships with data management platforms, obviously the information that we're able to pull from online platforms, but also location technology driven platforms through mobile devices. So it allows us through this to learn tons of data, not only what consumers are doing online, the traditional cookie-based data that we know is changing and we know is evolving and we know eventually at some point is going to morph into something different, but also through third-party data. And I'll talk about that a little bit more here when we get down to one of the what's new things. But what makes LocalAds unique is not siloing off any of that data and using one specific data set, but understanding online data coupled with offline data. So what are my consumers doing online? And then what are they doing offline? Where are they going? Where do they frequent? What are their outdoor, outside, real world behaviors look like? And being able to combine those things together to really, truly understand who our audience is. And I'll give you guys a great example of a business category that we have a ton of data around with attorneys. So speaking specifically to personal injury attorneys that we work with, we've learned a ton over the last couple of years that's helped us create a profile of pretty consistent behaviors. So give you guys an example. if you look at just any one single event of online or offline data, so someone going online and Googling, doing a search for personal injury attorneys or injured or back pain. If you look at any one event, like someone going to an auto body shop, is there a possibility that that person is in market, a personal injury attorney? Absolutely. But now you're competing at a very funnel, or they may not actually be in market for that. Well, what we looked at is several behaviors sequenced together. So someone who visits a body shop and visits a chiropractor and goes online and maybe looking for cars and goes online and is searching about back pain. Those events sequenced together tell us with a pretty high degree of certainty that that person is in market for a personal injury attorney. Again, any of those things individually aren't going to give us enough to feel competitive in bidding for that, but understanding that sequence of behaviors, all of that behavior driven together, gives us a pretty good idea that if we're running a search campaign, if we're trying to drive phone calls or an online form fill, that if somebody goes in and they press and then they search for attorney, that's a consumer we want to get in front of. So we're going to adjust our strategy in getting in front of that consumer, and we're going to put a priority on somebody who's shown that kind of behavior. That's one example. There's tons and tons of different categories. And to not take all of this time, certainly anything that you guys would want to talk to about that, Nick is available to have those conversations. But that's a great example of how we marry online and offline data to get a better understanding of who our ideal customer is, what they do, and where they are in the funnel. I do have Q&A at the end, so I promise any questions you guys have, we will be able to get to. One of the next core components is the attribution, and we've kind of already talked about this, so I don't want to I don't want to stay on it for too long. But the combination of technologies that we have in here, both through data management platforms, online, mobile, all of those things, it allows us to track conversions both online and offline. So whether it be an online form fill on a customer's website, a recorded phone call through a tracking number, an online purchase from an e-commerce site, or a physical visit into a store, we've got the ability to track those things all the way through what I would call to the last affectable point that we have through advertising. I know every advertiser, every business wants to get as granular as tell me how much this person came in my store and spent. Well, at that point, we're kind of out of our hands. If we drive traffic into a store and you don't have enough inventory in, or your sales staff maybe isn't great, we all know that hiring is a bit of a challenge right now, then those things shouldn't reflect onto a campaign that drove a potential consumer in. So we definitely talk about the last tangible point that advertising can affect, and that's based on that objective. But we want to show that and we want to provide that. Nick, anything you want to add to attribution? I know that's a very large point of discussion, a lot with you.
I think just kind of understanding the priority there, right? And understanding exactly back to what you were saying initially, Chris, like how are they going to measure success? I mean, we typically within the online conversions package, we optimize for both, right? Because some people will prefer to, some categories are more likely to prefer a phone call versus a form fill, but you never really truly know how that behavior is going to go. So it's nice to optimize for both. And within that online conversions package, we do have both phone calls and form fills in terms of those conversions. But yeah, I just think it's, just having that conversation up, it goes back to objective, right? When we talked about attribution there. So.
The last core component here is the multi-tier delivery. And again, we've kind of already addressed this. I like that graphic in the previous slide more than this one, because I think it really paints a picture of how users engage. But again, I stress it's far more important who we're speaking to than where we're speaking to them. And Nick, I know you can speak to some of the challenges advertisers and businesses have had in understanding that not the platform focus, but the audience focus, because it is far more important, again, to be able to speak to that audience in multiple places rather than just in one single platform, whether it be the ones we hear most often, Google, Facebook, the ones that people kind of want to silo off. And the other thing is those guys are very, very protective of their data. So we have the ability by identifying our audience outside of any one platform using a combination, we have the opportunity to push our audience into those platforms and not be restricted by any changes those guys may make. Oh, sorry. So one of the newest things, and we'll just kind of touch on this because I don't want to take a ton of time. There is a new course in Conquer Local Academy that is focused on local ads. I will tell you probably the greatest shock any of you will have if you go take that course is I'm the one who is leading the training videos, and in it I have hair down to my shoulders, and I cut it all off about a month and a half ago. So if you get in there and you see those courses and you wonder who that long-haired guy is, it's me. Don't be shocked. But what you'll be able to learn in that course, and I encourage all of you to jump in and take it, because it'll make me feel really waste all my time putting that together. No, I'm kidding. It's very informative. It's very robust. It's going to really give you guys a little bit more information on the nuts and bolts of how we do the things we do. How do we build an audience? How are we working behind the scenes to do those things? It will also talk to you about the product being broken down by objective. So understanding what goes into driving visits, what goes into driving phone calls. There are videos in there that break down for each of those objectives, kind of what that process looks like. Here's what you could see in a real world scenario. If you have this type of business and you want to drive visits, this is kind of what the process would look like. There's also case studies in there. It'll also teach you about the processes, how to set the product up in your store, how to order it, how to access reporting, how to read reporting. And then certainly Nick is an asset that is available consistently to help you guys with all of those things too. He's created some instructional videos on how to do some of that as well. So he can certainly help with that. But in respect of time and obviously wanting to get some questions, I want to talk to you guys about some things that are new. And so this is the product is active, but there hasn't been a big announcement or push on it. So you guys are really learning about some of this stuff before everybody else. But one of the things that is new is a product that's marketing insights. So what is marketing insights? Well, it's all about data. I want to say just the easiest comparison, and then I'll explain the difference, would be Google Analytics. As far as how it works and what we're going to learn, what Marketing Insights does is it allows you to learn about an advertiser's ideal customer at a very, very granular, in-depth level. So more than just your demographic and psychographic information, and I'll give you guys some examples here in a minute. What it's doing is it's a piece of code that goes in the header of their site, and when an advertiser accesses that site, it's going to go back and it's going to pull from third-party data, over 40 different data sources, 50,000 different data points, and the product page has what some of those are, but Experian, Equifax, American Express, Dun & Bradstreet, just huge data providers. And it's going to tell you some very, very unique things about who the consumer visiting your website is. And the reason this is different than what we do within a campaign is as we run a campaign, an actual local ads campaign, we can learn about the audience we're delivering ads to. What this is going to do is it's going to learn about organic traffic that's visiting a customer's or an advertiser's website. So they may not be people who are in our advertising target audience. It may reinforce what we're talking about. It may tell us something different, or that there's an audience group that we're missing that we're not talking to. So like I said, it's a complement to other analytics tool. It is not meant to replace those things, but it is a really, really great way to learn more and more about who your target audience is. So what that actually looks like, this is the kind of thing that you'll learn from a Marketing Insights, putting that pixel on a website, is what are some of their top behaviors? The audience who is visiting your advertisers, your client sites, what are some of their top behaviors? What do they like to do? They're into online banking. They like TV. Who doesn't? They're shopping, they're into outdoor activities, into winter sports, personal finance, some of the other things that we can learn. What are some of their top interests? And I know some of these are very high level, physical fitness, video games, movies, fashion, pets, men's clothing. So it's telling you of the people visiting your site, what are their hobbies and interests? We're also going to learn things at an even more granular level. What are their top TV apps that they're streaming? So the people who are visiting your website, what are they watching? You know, MTV, which is quite honestly shocking to me. I didn't know anybody watched MTV anymore. You've got some of your basic major networks out there, music festivals and awards show. You know, I think those are things that are pretty interesting. And then this is another thing that's going to be different than what Google Analytics is going to show you is where do they work? What business categories do they work in? What industries are they working in? So it's for B2B campaigns, this is going to help understand at a much more granular level, who's the audience that's visiting our site? Who do we need to be speaking to? Are there gaps there? Are we missing anything? This is just a high level overview. The product is in marketplace. You can go in and see more about it and certainly speak to Nick about it. But Nick, I want to take a minute and allow you to share with partners. You're having these conversations and you have been for the last couple of weeks. What's resonating? What is sticky with partners? What's the perception of this? Just share some of the experiences you've had in the last couple of weeks, because I know you've been on a lot of calls where you guys are talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's allowing partners to, data feed strategy, right? And so the more we can have an understanding of who these people are and what they look like, every client is ultimately seeking who their very best customers are. And so that's what this is providing us. It's just that persona. And there's just different levels of kind of where you are in the buying journey with that client. We have some folks that are just launching a new website, right? And they're not maybe ready to run a campaign quite yet. And so we're learning about all that organic traffic on there and, building that persona, taking that back to the partner and having that conversation. Okay, this is who your person is. Now, what do we want them to do in a new campaign from an objective standpoint? That's one example. We're also using this a lot during existing campaigns to continue to evolve them. So as we have an understanding of some of these trends that Chris is pointing out, sometimes it's evolving the creative and doing a new image or doing a new offer for the client, or really fine tuning that message to match what we're seeing in the insights. And that just obviously will measure the impact of that over time. A lot of times we uncover brand new opportunities from this. Like, we had no idea there was a brand new segment of these people. We thought my audience was more, mothers with kids, but it's really more on this side of it. And there might be a brand new opportunity, brand new campaign. So we've really been able to, I think, keep things a lot more sticky with clients, more consultative, and grow their accounts, not only more long-term, but branch off into separate accounts as well. So it just gets into that neat, we're all marketers here, I think, so this allows you to kind of get creative and down in the weeds and have those conversations with clients like to have about messaging and offers, and you just have more in your court there from that perspective. So
yeah, I want to share a real example of one that you were working in Q4 last year in the automotive space, and there's tons of information to be learned in the automotive space. But I think this is just a great example of, Nick, to your point, how it uncovered new opportunities. So automotive dealer that was multiple brands, and what they learned, and one of the things we didn't show here, but you do have access to, is what brands, what past purchases have the people visiting the site made, what brands are they associated with, what are they currently in market for. And what they found was that there was a huge number of people visiting their site who were in market for Chevrolet vehicles. So they looked at that and saw that as an opportunity to say, hey, we need to run a brand specific campaign for Chevrolet to that audience, because by doing this, we have access directly to that audience. And it uncovered new opportunity for them, where they saw, hey, there's an opportunity, instead of this larger umbrella campaign and bringing multiple brands in, to run something specifically in addition, specifically to this Chevrolet focused audience with Chevrolet focused creative, and saw some great return on it. And they were, driving, just for everybody's knowledge here, they were driving foot traffic to their lot and they saw an increase in visits there. So a lot of really good, really rich data in there, like Nick said, that allows you guys to have conversations where you're backed with ammunition that's it's objective data that can say, hey, here's the people who are visiting your website. Is it in line with what we thought it was? Is there a gap in opportunity here where we didn't know this is an audience that we needed to be speaking to, or a business category, or an interest or a hobby or an in-market purchase, whatever it may be? It's a great way to uncover new opportunity. So the other thing I wanted to talk about, in addition to marketing insights, is what's coming soon. And this is something we have slated. Fingers crossed, everything goes according to plan, end of Q1. It's adding some more robust online and offline behavior into those marketing insights. So again, tying back to that user and learning about what they're doing online and offline, but it's going to help advertisers understand not only what are people searching for online and what's their past purchase history, where are they physically going? Where have they been for the last, what brands are they associated with? How many physical visitors, how many people are coming to your customer's business versus going to their competitor's business? Being able to see that over the last 30 days, how much market share is your customer getting? How far are people traveling to go to a business, to shop, to eat, whatever they may do? Number of new customers versus repeat customers. And then being able to take that information, turn around, target those who are not coming to your client's business, and be able to increase their market share. So some really cool things coming with taking offline behaviors into understanding the online, and understanding market share and visitation and all of those things. And then lastly, it's the LocalAds products. For those of you who may have had some experience with it, right now LocalAds is in as a parent product with base and base and add-ons and all of the fun things that go along with multiple objectives under a product. But soon we will have the LocalAds product broken out in marketplace by objective, which means you guys will see a LocalAds visit product, a LocalAds calls product, a LocalAds online conversion product, a LocalAds OTT product. You'll see all of those things that will hopefully streamline the process, make the ordering process easier, make conversations easier between you and your clients when talking about what they're looking to do. But all of that is coming. So that being said, my presentation is done, and it seems like there's a lot of things in the chat. I will.
I'll guide you through them.
Okay.
Let's see. Joel Snyder says, "What's your proportion of cold traffic to retargeting within your structure?"
Well, actually, if Emily is still on, Emily, are you still on?
Yeah,
I'll
I
let
can
you
speak
to that. Yep.
Yeah, so it's really going to vary based on the campaign and how long it's been running. So typically when we launch, just because basically we're relying on the delivery of the display campaign to build up that retargeting audience. So when we first launched the campaign, so that you're getting some results out of the gate, it's a little bit more cold, but the longer that campaign runs, the more that retargeting audience builds up. So we'll see it get to around 80% usually for most campaigns.
Joel, does that answer your question? Yes. Okay, we'll move on. Let's see. Where do you source the offline data for in-market audiences?
I can answer that one too. We use we have an exclusive relationship with a DMP where we get all of that information, or all of those audiences from, and it's kind of a combination of self-opted in audiences. So people who I'd say I am, in market for this. It's first-party data that websites share with the DMP, in which then we're able to reuse, and then it's contextual as well. So it's kind of a combination of all of this.
Okay, Don asks, are the growing platforms available? Rumble, Locals? What? Does that make sense? Are the growing platforms available? Rumble, Locals?
Like I think, are those video platforms?
Don?
Yeah, Rumble is the YouTube replacement, and Locals is a pseudo Facebook replacement.
So it really just depends on whether or not they're part of our ad network, which I can't speak to offhand. But you know, and I saw a couple questions that we can get to later about placements and time of day and device. And so I think it all kind of boils down to what, you know, the premise of the product is, which is audience first. So we really try not to hone too much in on the platform itself, but rather target the audience and let the data speak to you know, which of those platforms they're engaging on. And then the campaign will be optimized towards wherever those platforms are. So typically we try not to really like restrict ourselves out of the gate by saying, hey, we're going to target these platforms, or we're going to target these times of days or these devices, but rather here's our target audience, let's target them. And then wherever they're engaging is where we'll show the ads.
So are you using internet ads or ads that run like on Facebook?
So we do offer a Facebook targeting campaign, but our core LocalAds product, it includes programmatic display and video and search retargeting.
Okay, next question. Who are the sources of geo-targeting and other offline data? And please tell me if we've already answered this in other conversations.
It all comes from our DMP that we have an exclusive relationship with.
Sorry,
I don't know if we're
DMP?
allowed to. Data management platform.
Great. I never understand any acronyms ever.
Sorry. That was my fault.
I think Nick answered this, but I'm just gonna drop it out once more. Where can we learn about their credit? Equifax, etc. Nick says correct. FICO, Experian, Equifax.
Yeah, so I could have part of multiple of the sources within our data management platform are Experian, Equifax. There are other sources that provide some financial information, but we do have the ability to target based on credit score, based on income levels. I will say credit score is based on a range. They do not provide a specific credit score, but they will give an audience based on a range of credit score, say from 750 to 800, 7 to 750. They'll provide it like that. So yeah, Experian and Equifax are two of the data sources that provide that information, but we get financial information from multiple of those sources.
Okay, Tim asks, is there a reason why the product is available in Australia and not the UK? And will marketing insights be available in the UK?
So Emily, I'll tee this up to the best of my knowledge, and I know you're more behind the scenes. Some of it has to do with GDPR. Now, LocalAds is GDPR and CCPA compliant, but because of GDPR restrictions in the UK, inventory is limited. We are working to get it available in the UK, so it is something we are actively working on behind the scenes, but it just, to be quite transparent, it's one of those things where there has to be enough opportunity to essentially go and get enough inventory to be able to use. So we are working on that.
Okay, Darlene asks, is this in Partner Center already?
Yes.
Yes, it is. The Marketing Insights product is live on there. That just launched recently. And then obviously the LocalAds product itself has the different packages in there. And as Chris mentioned, that's going to be in the marketplace, phrased out by objective there moving forward.
Okay. Joel Snyder asks, does it work for B2B?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does and it doesn't, right? I mean, my answer to that is it's kind of, we from an audience perspective, we can go under, we've got job function, we've got job occupation, we've got job title, we've got company size, company revenue, right? So we can really hone in on the decision makers and the influencers. You know, we've gotten this question a lot from lead generation from our partners trying to grow their own business. I just think the buying journey is very, very different. We know the buying journey is very, very different from compared to consumers, right? And so I think we just need to be, it's one of those where we have to map out a good strategy, kind of like a funnel strategy in terms of that messaging, where we have to take them through kind of 3, 6, 9 months and really position it as a long-term campaign. because we just have to stay out in front of that audience a lot longer compared to the consumer side. So it's really just that more that attribution, setting those proper expectations. So yeah, just those are conversations we can all have, obviously, in the calls.
Okay. Can you restrict, David asks, can you restrict advertising to specific day parts?
Yes, we can, but again, it's not something we recommend doing just because we like to target the audience and then sort of let the data speak to when the performance is the best. But if there's, a strong case for, they can't fulfill leads that come in after a certain hour or something, that is something that you would just specify with Nick ahead of time, and we can incorporate that.
And I think one thing to add on that too is just we try not to restrict. We try to keep it open, right? Because there's any and all opportunities to connect with that audience, right? We never truly know, sometimes there's some activity later at night, when people are doing research and things like that. So we don't want to limit the opportunities to connect with them and influence those behaviors. Maybe over the course of time, once we have a better understanding, we can make some of those adjustments, but we try to keep it open, and focus on the audience from that perspective.
Okay. We have lots of questions coming in. So Bill asks, will marketing insights also identify visitor IP address and attempt to append contact information for that visitor along with enhanced persona data? And he also said you should take the more robust insights one step further to create customer personas as a deliverable of the program. I don't know if Bill wants to say anything else.
Yeah, we just on the first comment, seems as though we're identifying the visitors at a category level, maybe not the personal individual level, but then you're also claiming that you can provide things like brand affinity and so forth. And I'm not sure how you get that unless you actually know who you're interacting with or who's the visitor. So if you know the visitor by some way, I'm assuming IP address, I don't know. Is there a way to then, get contact information so it's a more targeted messaging out back to them?
I can speak on that. So the way that it works, and I think you also asked who the DMP is. I don't know if are we allowed to say, Chris, who it is? I
don't think it's supposed to be public knowledge, but
okay. Well, the DMP that we work with is able to provide those segments, and it is based on IP address, but because that's PII, we don't touch that information. So it's hashed and then created basically in a way that's our advertising platforms understand, but in a sense that we don't actually see that information. And the whole privacy concern is the reason that we don't offer, we don't even have that data available to us of, Bill from, with this telephone number and this email address is the one who saw this ad. It's all sort of done on the back end.
And Emily, I'll add to that. One of the things that I didn't mention, and it is very clearly laid out on the product page, but with marketing insights, you've got to reach a threshold of visitors too. So we've got to get a large enough pool of visitors that not only that we have some actionable data, but also so that they are not identifying one user who has one affinity to one brand or one market. So I think that kind of helps explain a little bit more of how they pull that information, because the data management platform, like Emily says, may have me, Chris Stec, as advertiser ID 123, whereas the platform has me as advertiser ID 456. Well, behind the scenes, they're able to marry those things up, and we don't ever see the connection of that. It's just the integrations that we have of connecting those platforms together. But the big thing is having enough users who have an affinity to a brand or past purchase histories or anything like that to be able to show that information.
So let me follow up with a question. Recognizing that 90+% of site visitors bounce and are anonymous to the brand, I can currently identify through IP targeting those people and communicate back to them, to message them back. the advantage I see of insights is to be able to refine that messaging a bit more directed at those same people. But other than that, what am I missing?
Well, I think that's a big thing, right, Bill? I mean, it's how can we personalize the message by just knowing more about them in general, right?
Yeah.
Audience breakdown, and it's uncovering some of the opportunities as well. I think it's just looking at it holistically too, right? I mean, obviously we want, this is our data and everything, so this can feed off, new campaigns and new opportunities, but looking at that entire marketing picture, what are we doing with content and blogs and websites? And if we, these are learnings that can be applied in a lot of different areas, right? And it's, back to what Chris was saying, it's really good proprietary data, right? These are like the top 50, you can't get this kind of very different from like a Google Analytics perspective, right? So we expect just that's kind of where I guess our conversation specific to that client will come into play on how we can use it, and we'll help drive that, case by case.
Okay, next question. I want to make sure we keep going because we got a lot. David asks, can you specify mobile only or desktop only?
That again, I think kind of goes back to what Emily was talking about earlier. We don't want to restrict delivery based on that. It will absolutely learn and optimize both through AI and through manual optimizations. If there is greater engagement on a mobile device, then that's where a bulk of the delivery is going to go. It certainly depends on objective too. If their KPI is to drive in-store visits, then it is naturally going to deliver more heavily to a mobile device, because that's what we take with us and that's what we walk into a store with, and that's how we identify that it's entered that location. So I think the best way to answer that is, again, we advise against it because we want to learn. Sometimes we think we know things that maybe are a little different than the way that we thought they were. But I hope that answers. We try not to ever segment and deliver only to one device, but we'll learn where's the target audience, how are they engaging, where are they engaging more, and obviously optimize to deliver more heavily where that is happening.
Okay. Couple quick ones. Paul asks, what do you suggest is a good average spend for clients to start?
Nick, this is your wheelhouse.
Say it one more time, Colleen. Sorry, it cut off on me.
No problem. What do you suggest is a good average spend for clients to start?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, well, I'll preface that with the objective packages in there. There is minimums depending on the objective. So it all starts there. I would say on average, right, like just kind of a good happy medium is probably in that $1,500 wholesale range. This is kind of digital on advertising, right? There's a lot of key components in here, and it's kind of that one-stop shop that brings everything together. So it's going to be on the little bit more of the premium side. But more specifically, if you're looking at kind of that last trackable step of an objective of a phone call or form fill, it's $1,250 wholesale. Physical visits start a little bit lower there. Like if you're trying to drive traffic into a brick and mortar, we know that's where the purchase takes place. That starts at $500. And then, just an awareness campaign, which is kind of the very foundation to collect some data and drive some traffic, starts even lower than 500 there. But a lot of it's going to depend on the audience size, right? So those are questions that I'm helping with partners out there is, okay, who's our target audience? We'll run the numbers in the back end to see what that total addressable market looks like and make it a recommendation based off that, as well as like, do they have 5 locations? Do they have, they're trying to drive traffic to, 10 restaurants, for example. Some of those are factors that would impact the budget recommendations on that, but we can help get that for you.
You allow some kind of meeting with a client at the beginning to understand what a good spend would be.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
How would we go about doing that? Because generally we have to buy the product or the services first. Do we ask our sales agent to say, hey, I need to talk to somebody in LocalAds, to have them meet with my client, to go through a discussion of an audience review and those kinds of things to determine what would be best?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you can reach out to us directly, right? Either on the product, if you go to the product page, you'll see the contact information there, and I'm happy to put it here in the notes. But that's also what partners do too. They'll fill in the PDM there, the strategist that you're working with, and they'll set up a call and bring me in. And we all just kind of have a strategy conversation together, uncover kind of the objective, the key facts about it, and we'll run the numbers and kind of like a proposal format for you to take back to the client there. We don't do that for every opportunity, obviously, but for the ones that are significant there and that need some of that pre-sales research.
We have a ton more questions. I want to be cautious of Nick, Chris, and Emily's time. I'm happy to stay on if everyone else is. First, before everyone maybe has to go, I just want to show you where the course is located. So here in the Academy, scroll down all the way to the bottom, turquoise color. Build a better advertising solution with local ads. This is a really robust course. You guys are going to learn a lot. You do earn a badge. Haha, I already got it. One step ahead of you all. If we jump in, we can kind of see what we're going to go through. It's the nitty gritty details. Nitty gritty details all through here. So get ready for it. Can you all see this one? Just making sure that you can see the module. Yes, I see some nods. Okay, good. Next, I also want to let you know that these are all recorded. You can find them here. Remember Andrew Carson, his beautiful face that started all of these. So you can go in here and find the recording of this if you would like. And then finally, in the community forum, Brett will post the slide deck as well for everyone to take part in it. One last thing, I asked marketing while we were on. We do have a Vendasta swag store. I had no idea. So I will paste this in the chat for you. But if everyone wants to stay on and keep having the conversation, let's do it as long as Nick, Chris, and Emily have time. The three of you okay to keep answering some questions?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
I can see there's a few more. Yeah.
There's a lot more for you. Michael asks, when will TikTok be integrated within the system?
Emily, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, is that part of the ad network, Emily?
Yeah. So, sorry, what was that?
I was wondering if that was part of the app network.
No, it's not. So TikTok is its own product that we're not currently offering. It's one of those things we're exploring internally, but we sort of need to get the demand there to really justify like launching it as its own product as part of the social. It would be part of the social audience builder if and when we do launch that, but currently it's not available.
Okay, you already asked Bill's question, who is the DMP? Can't say right now. Let's see, Tim asks, are there any case studies of existing partners using it for themselves?
I believe we have.
I think we have one, yep. And I think the success measurement was really more of that long-term approach for them. But we do talk about that a little bit in some of the sales calls, but Vendasta actually use LocalAds for some of their lead generation too. And we actually still talk to some of those leads that come in from partners today, which is pretty neat. But that was more of a long-term approach and kind of building out that funnel strategy. So, but we have some data on that we can share.
Awesome. Frank asks, are there any industries you recommend targeting for this over any other, or is there an industry we should stay away from?
Nick, I'll let you fill in with some of them. So anything that's a sensitive category. So we've had some challenges with cannabis. Nick, which other ones that we know have been difficult?
Yeah, I think, just some on the medical space, like even though medical is a great category for us in general, but like regenerative, medicine and some of those kind of the fine line ones are, they're hard from an attribution perspective. That's the biggest thing, right? So we can't go across, it's a Google thing, right? Retargeting search on Google is restricted in a lot of those. But I think, chime in, Chris, but I think, other than those, there's actually a solution sales guide, which is a nice way to just pinpoint your opportunities there. And there's the top 40 of those are listed. Everything from professional services, accounting to, personal injury to auto sales to, brick and mortars, retail, medical, as I mentioned, is a big one too that we're doing a lot in. So it's pretty open and flexible. And I think that guide's a good way to pinpoint them. That's also in the screenshots and file section of the partner center there. That's kind of where we house all of the resources there, the pitch deck, the case studies, and that guide.
Joel Snyder asks another question. Thank you, Joel. It says, can we use the Insights Pixel and reports without buying Local Ads package?
So it
See
is
some
a
nods.
standalone product. You can do that. Absolutely. The only way to activate that exact audience, though, if you chose to take that information and try to build a campaign off of it, you would be more than welcome to obviously do that. But anything that shows up in that marketing insights report, we do have, because of our integrations, we have the ability to target that audience specifically. So if you learned something about it and said, hey, this is the audience I want to go after, the best way to activate on that and reach that exact audience would be through a LocalAds campaign. But marketing insights is absolutely a tool that if you just want to help your clients learn about their customers and you're utilizing that for a different marketing source, you absolutely can do that. Yes.
John asks, are these ads sticky? Will they follow the targetive, are these ads sticky? Will they follow the targetive perspective?
Yes, and Emily, I'll let you just speak a little bit to kind of how it follows, I guess.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that every person in the audience is going to continue to see the ads, but the ones that are engaged will, because they're going to be identified as high intent basically, and then they'll be treated at a higher frequency than some of those other users.
Okay. Darlene just made a comment. I would like to understand the back-end team strategy of relying on AI versus manual adjustments. We have kept our ad management in-house as we rely heavily on human oversight, primarily over AI.
Yeah, I can speak to that one as well. So it's kind of case by case. We start most of our campaigns on manual bidding, actually, just because there's no data there. And then we'll sort of test into the AI, but in some cases, we'll see that the manual bidding outperforms. So it really just depends on the campaign. In the instances where we are using AI, there's still a really heavy degree of manual oversight there. And we have different automations in place to alert us when certain things are off that we'll go and look into in the cases where we are using complete AI. But yeah, it really varies based on the campaign.
Okay, I think that might be our last question. We got some LocalAds definitely rocks. Take it. Thanks for the session, information. Julie says we're all fabulous. I shared the links, and Frank says thanks a billion. Does anyone else have any questions that they want to ask this trio? Maybe? No? Speak now or forever hold your peace. No? Okay, well, thank you to the three of you, Nick, Chris, and Emily. We all super appreciate it. You guys did an awesome job. There was tons of questions for you. So reminder, we're going to have that slide deck posted in the community for you, and be sure to take the course and earn your badge. Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend. Be safe.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, we can.